Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of
Ready or Not,
Money Talks. My name is Chris Stacks.
I'm Nate Rodriguez.
We are beyond excited to be bringing you guys some financial and business education from
Absolutely.
South Florida. So today, we're going to talk about one of the simplest things, but also one of the most overlooked. Yes, I'm talking about budgeting. Nate, how many people do we talk to on a daily basis that don't have a budget laid out?
I mean, if you're asking percentage, it's very high.
It's high, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And when you think about that, what's the first thing, or what's one of the biggest problems that we have today?
Savings.
Savings. So if people aren't saving enough money, why is that? Well, we just had Hurricane Ian. I'm so glad, everybody on the East Coast here, we got very lucky.
Yep. Yeah, we're down here in South Florida, so
Yeah.
we didn't get as much of it, but we definitely know people across the state.
Yeah, if you're on the West Coast, Orlando, up into it's heading to South Carolina now. We wish you the best. We hope everything's well. And everybody that got lucky, hey, let's stay that way, right? Agree. But when it comes to your savings, the majority of us don't have a blueprint. If we're leaving the state because we thought Ian was coming at us, we knew where we were driving to. We had a map.
Right.
But when it comes to your savings or even staying out of debt, that's like a swear word, right? The majority of us do not have a financial plan. So that budget is going to be the first step in that plan. And one of the first things that we talk about is expenses versus discretionary income. Now, Nate over here, he definitely is the overall smarter person than I am as far as we're talking about English and those types of things. So Nate, give them a quick breakdown, just layman's terms of what discretionary income really is.
Well, discretionary income is just the money that's left over after expenses.
Perfect. I couldn't have said it better, and that's why I've got him here. And so when you look at it, you got to look at your spreadsheet or your notebook. A lot of people, I'm a spreadsheet guy. What do you use?
Spreadsheets.
Spreadsheets. So we're techies, not gonna lie. So it's either, Google Sheets, or it's Excel spreadsheets, listing out every single expense you've got. Everything. Anything come to mind that people probably overlook?
I mean, just subscriptions. A lot of times you see what comes up monthly, but you don't see the annual stuff. Like, let's say Amazon Prime, you don't notice that. Or even we're in Florida, if you have like a Orlando Disney Pass, stuff like that, you don't notice that coming out every month because it comes once a year. Then when that time comes, you're not accounted for it.
Yep. And almost all of us have Netflix, Amazon Prime.
Oh yeah.
So many different services today.
Hulu, Peacock, they're coming out with everything. Stars, HBO Max.
It's crazy these days. With that budgeting though, with that spreadsheet that you're gonna create, is it income after tax or is it income before tax?
Definitely income after tax.
Exactly. So when we look at it, a lot of people like to talk about, I make 63 a year, I make 120 a year, but they're not taking taxes into account.
Because they're not taking that home.
Right. Here in Florida, it's not as bad. We don't have state tax. Thank you to Sandus. Please stay in office. But if you're in other states like California, New York, you guys.
Your home state of Vermont.
Vermont, yeah, absolutely. You're getting hit with taxes beyond taxes just from the state, but then you have federal on top of it. So you got to take that into account when you're laying out your budget. If you make 120 and you take home, 90 or 85 after taxes.
Yeah, roughly I was thinking.
You got to make sure you're spending less than that. You can't be spending 90 or 120.
Yeah.
you got to be under it. And so when you're thinking about how can I knock out some of the debt if I have debt, what percentage of people today have debt? It's high, right?
I don't even know the exact number.
50-something%, right?
It's definitely over 50%.
I believe it was over
half the
50%
country
of the country, yeah.
And
has
some
debt.
of that don't might be children. No, I'm just kidding.
And you can look at it, there is good and bad debt. That'll be a whole nother conversation that we have. We're going to try and keep these concise. But when you're thinking about getting out of debt, what can you do to create a new habit? Because just like going to the gym, we just hit the gym today, had a great workout. But what's the first thing when you go to the gym and you're like, I'm doing legs today? How's that feeling?
Going into it, you have that anticipation, a little bit of anxiety, like how's it going to go? But then once you're going through it, you start feeling it, you start getting into it, and the adrenaline starts kicking in, the endorphins, and it feels much better.
Right, and you know that there's going to be a sacrifice. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to feel the burn. I'm going to have, if it's leg day, I'm going to have trouble walking down the stairs. But that sacrifice does what? You lose weight, you get stronger. So when we're getting ready to set up our financial budget and figure out what our expenses are versus our discretionary, and then if we have debt, get out of debt. If we don't have, which I got to say, if we don't have 3 to 6 months of savings, especially with what's going on in the economy,
definitely got to build that.
got to build it. And how are we going to build it? It's sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, ladies, my wife and I have had this conversation. When we got together, we weren't where we are financially. And we said, how do we get ahead?
Right.
It was haircuts. It was nails. It was new clothes, not as often. Maybe going from the Louis bag, instead of getting the Louis bag, I think it's like the Gucci bag or the Coach bags is like half the price, and it's still got a name on it.
Michael Kors.
Michael Kors, right.
But no, I mean, as far as that's concerned as well, if you don't sacrifice it now, you'll be forced to sacrifice. Sorry, if you don't choose to sacrifice it now, you'll be forced to sacrifice it later. So you make that decision.
Perfectly well said. Again, it's fitness and finance. They go
hand in hand.
Hand in hand right there. And so make sure you put together a spreadsheet. If you have a spouse, sit down with your spouse. Don't just try and do it yourself. Sit down with them so you guys are on the same page.
Even your pen or paper if you have to. You know, whatever you feel is best. Because pen and paper, you can just post it right on your wall for you to look at all the time.
And don't make it and then not look at it for 12 months.
Right.
That is an issue. You've got to make it, and then you got to stick to that game plan. You know, oh, we're in debt, we're overspending. Okay, where can we save some money right now? Maybe we don't need 12 streaming platforms. Maybe we don't need to do our nails every week. Maybe we can do it every other week. You know, maybe we can push our lashes back 1 week. For the men, you know, choose a different golf course. Don't go to the $120 golf course. Go to the $40 golf course. If you like to go to the movies, you know, if you're in Florida, maybe don't go to iPic. Maybe go to DB Cinemas. And, you know, I know plenty of people want to go out on the weekend, right?
Absolutely. South Florida.
We're here in South Florida. Who doesn't want to hit up the different places, whether it's on the Ave? You know, what's that one everybody talks about on the Ave?
Tin Roof.
Tin Roof. Who doesn't want to hit up Tin Roof on the weekends?
Mm-hmm.
Well, go out and control yourself, right? You
Absolutely.
still want to tip the bartender. You still want to tip the server. But maybe instead of going out and spending $100 each, go out and spend $50. You can still have fun. You can still dance. But that $100 that we go out and spend and don't even think about it,
it adds up quick.
Oh my goodness! Think if you do it once a weekend, and there's 52 weeks in a year, that's $5,200.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in debt $10,000, how quickly did you just make up your debt or half of it?
Right. And just from one night alone, let alone from the other cuts you can make.
Right. So our biggest recommendation on this one, guys, ladies, put together a sheet, whether it's a pen and paper or whether it's a spreadsheet on your computer.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out what you make. Be real with yourself. Don't exaggerate.
Yeah.
Be real with what you make, and then look at, okay, what are we really spending? Rent. What are we spending on phone?
Rent right now is ridiculous.
Rent is ridiculous. I completely understand. There is, you know, I've heard of a lot of people living together. Hey, let's save some money. Let's find a place where we can both be happy, both be content.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, split the rent. I've heard some crazy stories about exes getting together. It's weird, but we
gotta
do what we gotta do these days. So figure out exactly what your expenses are. Don't miss anything. Be real. Gas, food. You know, how often do you go out?
Mm-hmm.
Uber Eats. Oh my word, Uber Eats. All these different things. Write it down.
Everything.
From there, say, okay, my bills, depending on where you live, my bills are $5,000 a month. Okay, what do you make? I make $60,000 a year. That's not good numbers. That means you're right on the line.
Right.
So you got to start going through and cut it out. Now, moving forward, we're going to go over a little bit more in depth on the next one as far as, okay, once you got the budget, how do I structure it out? Chris, how do I put myself first? Or Stacks, how do I put myself first? Nate, how do I put myself first? I always hear, I want to pay myself first. That's a great business mentality mindset. The one thing about that is you have to have the cash flow and the
discretionary income.
Exactly. If you have that discretionary income and you have enough cash flow, then you get to go pay yourself first.
Right.
So that's things that we're going to talk about as we move forward. Again, I'm Chris Stacks.
I'm Nate Rodriguez.
We are very excited to be coming here for you guys, bringing some education on finance, money, business. But this is Money Talks.